God, I'm getting dizzy here. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Peter here. Today I'd like to tell you about one way of how to take amazing macro shots even if you don't have the budget to buy a dedicated macro lens. So let's have a look at what we can do. In my last video I talked a little bit about the Raynox DCR-250, which is a snap-on lens. I can screw this out from the universal adapter so you can see what it actually looks like. As you can see, it's relatively tiny. And it's dirty as well. I will have to clean it. And all you gotta do is just screw it back on here and then grab a lens that has a filter thread between 52 and 67 millimeters, and it just snaps on just like that. So this particular lens that you can see on my Canon80D right now is the kit lens that I purchased it with. This is the 18 to 135 millimeter Nano IS USM with image stabilization and autofocus, but we won't be using that. I've already got it disabled. At the telephoto end, which is 135 millimeters, the Canon EF-S 18 to 135 millimeter USM-L gives you 0.28x magnification, and the minimum focusing distance is 39 centimeters. But with the DCR-250 attached, I'm using the formula that I've already shown you in my previous video. So we use the DCR-250, and then the focal length of the lens is 135 millimeters. The magnification ratio is 0.28, and the minimum focusing distance is 39 centimeters. And it says that once we've got the DCR-250 on, it gives us a 1.66 to 1 macro lens, which is already better in terms of magnification than, let's say, the 100 millimeter macro lens from Canon. Obviously the image quality is not going to be nearly as good. It's going to be relatively softer. I still managed to capture some really decent shots that I'm going to show you in a second, but before that I'd like to cover a couple of things before you go out and shoot, just to make sure that you get decent enough images that are sharp enough. So with these lenses, the kit lenses, the optical quality of the lenses is usually much lower than, let's say, professional L lenses or prime lenses. That is one of the main reasons why I would not use a narrower aperture than, let's say, f8. With the Canon 100mm prime macro lens, I usually go up to even f16. My go-to aperture is f14 and still super sharp without any diffraction. But in this case, if you go above f11, the diffraction is gonna just kick in to the point where the images become extremely unusable, blurry, and super soft, even in the center of the frames. So I wouldn't recommend that. A chromatic aberration is present as well. You will see plenty of fringing, color fringing. Actually, I have, I think, a couple of images here where you can see. If you zoom in, yeah, I'm gonna zoom in here. I took a picture of some description on the outside of the water heater. You can see the purple fringing on the left side, and the green color cast on the right side is pretty apparent. You can see the difference between the magnification ratio. This particular one without the DCR-250 gives you 0.28x, and with that we get the 1.66 or so magnification, which is pretty decent. But if we zoom in, you can see that it's much softer than without the DCR-250. It's much sharper. Just make sure that you select the right aperture. I would recommend with this particular lens f8, and in most cases, most kit lenses, I wouldn't go above f8. That is usually the sweet spot if you step down 1 or 2 from the widest aperture, which is 3.5 on this particular lens. And for the chromatic aberration and all the other distortions, for example, the pincushion distortion, which happens at the telephoto end at 135mm, it becomes pretty obvious, pretty visible as well. But you can definitely eliminate those, for example, with profile correction enabled in Lightroom. There's also some heavy vignetting. You gotta take that into account. But in most cases, I usually crop even with 1.6 magnification. It's not a big problem for me. But then again, you can also do some corrections in post yourself. I can only recommend this DCR-250. It's an amazing little lens and it's super cheap, $90. And the next thing I'm gonna experiment with is gonna be the 100 to 400mm zoom lens, which I've been using mainly for bird photography. but I'm gonna try the DCR-250 with that as well. We'll see what kind of results we get. If you have a kit lens at home and you don't want to buy a macro lens, just invest into this DCR-250. It's gonna give you plenty of magnification, and you can just start with it and then experiment, and then once you get the hang of it and you want a little bit better quality, then maybe it's time for you to invest into a macro lens. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys very soon in the next one.